In a room full of people who were supposed to be my family, the one person who promised to love and protect me decided to tear me down instead. He laughed at my expense, pointed fingers, and left me humiliated in front of everyone. But here's the twist. What he didn't know was that his own daughter was about to deliver the kind of revenge that would make every single jaw in that room hit the floor. My name is Megan, and this is the story of how my husband became the punching bag. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. It started on what was supposed to be an ordinary Sunday dinner. The kind of evening where families laugh, share food, and feel safe. But for me, it was the night my husband turned me into a punchline. I remember walking into his parents' living room, carrying a tray of homemade lasagna I'd spent hours preparing. The smell of garlic and herbs followed me in, and for a brief moment, I felt a swell of pride. His mother gave me a polite nod. His siblings barely looked up from their drinks. "Well, here comes the chef," my husband said loudly, a smirk plastered on his face. Everyone turned to stare. "Careful, guys. Don't eat too much, or you might end up with food poisoning. She's not exactly Julia Child." Laughter erupted. I froze, the tray still in my hands. My cheeks burned as if someone had pressed hot irons against them. I forced a smile, setting the tray down, but inside, I was crumbling. That wasn't just a joke, it was humiliation. And it didn't stop there. As the night went on, my husband treated me like his personal comedy show. Every story, every dig was at my expense. She takes forever to get ready. Honestly, sometimes I think she stares at the mirror just to see if it cracks. Don't let her drive you anywhere. She could get lost in her own neighborhood. Each comment stung like a slap. What hurt the most wasn't just the words. It was the way his family laughed along, nodding and adding their own jabs. And me? I sat there smiling politely, gripping my wine glass so tightly I thought it might shatter. Inside my head, the thoughts were screaming, "Why are you doing this to me? Aren't I supposed to be your partner, not your punching bag?" But I stayed quiet because that's what I'd always done. I thought I was the only one noticing that maybe this humiliation would pass like all the others. But then I looked across the table. My daughter, 15 years old, quiet and thoughtful, was staring at me. Her eyes weren't just sad, they were angry. I could see her jaw tighten and her fingers curl into fists under the table. In that moment, I realized I wasn't the only one he was hurting. He was teaching her that this is what marriage looks like, that this is how women get treated, and she wasn't having it. Dinner ended, and as usual, his family gathered in the living room. Drinks in hand, stories flying, laughter echoing. My husband was in his element, the center of attention, the king of mockery. "Hey, honey," he called out. "Tell them about the time you burned spaghetti." "Yes, spaghetti. She can't even boil water, right?" That's when my daughter stood up. Her voice was calm, but sharp enough to cut through the chatter. "Actually, Dad, I think there's a funnier story." Everyone turned. She looked him dead in the eye and said, "Remember last week when you cried in the garage because Grandpa called you a failure? You begged me not to tell Mom. But since we're all sharing jokes tonight, maybe they should hear that one too." Silence. The kind of silence that's louder than any scream. Faces shifted from laughter to shock. His siblings exchanged glances. His mother's smile evaporated. My husband's face turned crimson. He stammered, tried to laugh it off, but the damage was done. For the first time, the room wasn't laughing with him. They were looking at him, and not with admiration, but with disappointment. He tried to recover, muttering something about teenagers being dramatic. But my daughter wasn't done. "Oh, should I also tell them about the time you asked Mom for money because you blew your paycheck on a fantasy football league? Or the time you told Uncle Mark you were the man of the house while Mom paid the bills and balanced the budget?" Each sentence was another dagger, and with every word, I could feel the years of humiliation lifting off my shoulders. My daughter was doing what I had never dared to do, exposing him in front of the very people he wanted to impress. By the time she finished, he wasn't the funny guy anymore. He was the fool. Dinner ended quickly after that. His family awkwardly said their goodbyes, avoiding his gaze. When the door closed, he turned to my daughter, furious. "How dare you embarrass me like that?" And she shot back with words that still echo in my mind. "How dare you embarrass Mom like that? Maybe if you respected her, I wouldn't have to clean up your mess." He was stunned into silence. For once, I didn't defend him. I didn't make excuses. I just stood there looking at my daughter, this fierce young woman who had more courage in one night than I'd had in 15 years. And for the first time in so long, I felt free. The next family dinner, my husband was quiet. No jokes, no smirks. His siblings kept their distance. His mother's tone toward me was suddenly respectful because the truth was out. His mask had slipped, and it wasn't me they were laughing at anymore. It was him. Sometimes revenge doesn't come from elaborate schemes or carefully laid traps. Sometimes it comes from a single voice refusing to stay silent. In my case, it was my daughter, the very person he thought would sit quietly in the corner, who showed everyone exactly who he really was. That night, my daughter didn't just stand up for me. She did what I had been too afraid to do for years. She exposed my husband's cruelty and the fragile ego he tried to hide with humor. She showed our family that his jokes weren't funny. They were weapons. And in that one moment, she didn't just protect me, she taught me a lesson in courage. Because of her, I finally saw that I deserved more than silent suffering. I deserved respect. Have you ever seen someone stand up for you when you couldn't do it yourself?